Okay, welcome to Cell Theory Part 2. Of course, this is coming right after Cell Theory Part 1. And so, before we launch into the new learning we're going to do today, I want to review the stuff that we did in Cell Theory Part 1. Okay, I want you to turn your brain on. And now, in the class, I guess I could certainly have you take out a piece of paper and that kind of stuff and have you do this. Let's call it a practice quiz. I'm not going to make you do this one in written words this time, but we are going to sometime or other, without warning, have a quiz that will include this. Okay, and so the question is, what are the three parts of cell theory? That was the main learning we had last time, the learning objective, and I want you to think for a second. Three parts of cell theory. Do you remember? Okay, you should at this point have an idea. And so anyway, the first one, just as a review, is number one, cells are the basic unit of life. Okay, so this basically, well, basic, there it is. The basic unit of function and structure in living organisms on the planet Earth is the cell. And the also, anything smaller than the cell technically is not alive, right? So it's the most fundamental unit of life. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the second one, which are all living things. What's the again? Oh, that's right. All living things are made of cells. Now, is it conceivable that somewhere in the future they could go to another planet and find some sort of exo-life that isn't made of cells? I suppose that's possible. But I'll tell you what, cells is what we have on Earth as the foundation of life. It's hard to imagine what it could be if it wasn't. The more you know about cells, the more you realize how it makes sense that things would be at that particular scale and sort of scale up by being organized. So, but maybe, who knows? But right now, all life that we know of on the planet Earth is made of cells, okay? And so that's pretty important. If you want to understand what life is, you got to understand cells and cell theory. Okay, and the third one would be, let me see, where do cells come from? That's right. All living cells come from other cells, right? You don't just have cells magically appear out of some goop. It's got to basically be, you got a cell and it will divide, mother and daughter cell. Now the question about, well, then where did the first cell come from? First of all, I want to say, that's a good question. Second of all, I want to say, nobody really knows. There are some answers that are probably likely about how it might have happened. They've done experiments where they've taken just a big glass jar of the things that they think are like CO2 and ammonia and things that they think were some of the early components of the Earth's atmosphere and in the water. And it's sort of filled with water with these other things in it, and then just little lightning sparks. And what they've ended up producing, when they came back a couple days later, the molecules had combined to become the three basic types of molecules you're going to learn about at the end of this lesson. Fats, that's lipids they're called, which is what cell membranes are about. And the other one, proteins, the amino acids were produced, which are the building blocks of proteins, and then also some simple nucleic acids, which are the building blocks of DNA and RNA. So what they do know is like totally not a problem to make the basic molecules. To get them organized as living things, nobody really knows how that happened. And it was so, maybe you'll become a biologist and work on that question. It's a pretty fascinating question. So I just want to say right from the beginning, there's tons of stuff that science has not discovered yet. And honestly, that's one of them. There are good concepts about possibilities, but nobody knows. So, but here's the thing. Right now on Earth, what they do know is any of these molecules that were just floating around, if there's some way for them to spontaneously form like a simplest form of life, they would get gobbled up by the existing life right away. So we're not going to see it happen. And if it did happen, it would take millions and millions of years. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing, which is mind-blowing fact. Okay, I want to do a mind-blowing fact here. Here's a mind-blowing fact. This is something that's not an official part of cell theory, but just something that's true. All life, at least all life that we know of on Earth, is in water. It's water-based. Now, carbon is one of the bases of organic molecules. But water is sort of the substrate that all life takes place in, right? Like simple microorganisms and, fish and stuff like that. But in a sense, even us. And I'll explain that in just a second. So, let me minimize myself and go to the next slide. The mind-blowing fact is all life takes place in water, including us. Now, that doesn't mean we're sleeping, we exist on the bottom of a swimming pool or something. Now, you can have the simplest forms of life like algae and stuff like that, and paramecia, different kinds of things you'd look at under the microscope. Those are all in water, right? Our cells, the cells that are the basic unit of life, are in water. If they dry out, they desiccate, they die, right? Um, yeah, so they take that, our cells are bathed in water and our organs and everything bathed in water. If you think about it, we have this skin that it has several different functions. One, detecting with sensor organs to be able to feel stuff and touch the world around us. But mostly it's to hold things together and keep the water inside. We're like these complex water sacs with these cells inside of them doing their functions. This very complex molecular biochemistry. And so, but we are full of water. We're big sacks of water. And, eventually, earlier, the idea would have been that all life would have been actually living in the water, but things managed to be able to come up on land because they could survive better up here to escape predators or things of that sort. And so, mind-blowing fact, for all life takes place in the water, including our cells living in the water of our own bodies. So stay hydrated. It's a good idea. Drink water. It's good for you.